Here's one thing that nobody talks about in relationships. Relationships are not here for your comfort. Relationships are here for your evolution and for creating the future that you want together. Relationships are a place in which you are here to become the best and most true version of yourself and to create something new, to birth something new together into the world. If you want him to show up for you, first you have to show up for yourself and get clear on what it is that you want. Then you need to fully embody this version of yourself that can receive that from him, and then with very clear communication, you tell him exactly what it is, what you want, but not how to do it. If you want a relationship that lasts, learn how to process your emotional triggers outside of the relationship space. Your relationship is a sacred container for the collaboration and co-creation of the future, of what you want to build together. If you keep dumping your shit into the relationship space, the relationship becomes this big battleground of resentment. Take your emotional triggers outside of the relationship and learn how to process them with someone else so that you can come to the relationship with clarity and presence.
Hello, Charlotte. Welcome to the show. Excited for our conversation. Why don't you give a listener a quick intro of who you are and how what you do in the world and how did you end up doing this work?
Super, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm glad to be here. And my work is to support women to create healthy relationships, thriving relationships, erotic relationships with men. And I got here in a very roundabout way. I started really in the world of yoga and kundalini and astrology, and I was giving people this information and energy about how to live their soul's purpose and how to step into what they really want to do and what they really came here to do. And in that process, I discovered that I was giving people this information about what's possible, but I had no idea how to support them to actually get there. And one of the biggest things that people are looking for, especially when they come for an astrology reading, is what does it say about relationships? What does it say about men? What does it say about who my soulmate is or what type of person it is?
Yep.
So this is one of the biggest topics for people in terms of coming in more contact with their soul. It's also about finding a soul mate or a soul partner. And I was inspired to figure out how to hold space and support people to step into this soul energy.
So from expanding your own sense of awareness and inquiring within yourself, and people would probably see your way of being and they were curious, how did you get there or something like that?
Yeah. I was kind of in my own self. I had gotten to the end of the rope with the astrology teachings and the yoga teachings. And I felt like, okay, I got it to some degree, right?
Yeah.
And then I was trying to live a healthy relationship and I was trying to build relationships with my family, but I had so much resentment towards my own family, my mom, even my dad. And I had all this kind of pent up anger and sadness and like emotions. And then I was in a relationship with a guy that I just didn't like. Like I don't even know how that happened, right? But it felt safe and he liked me more than I liked him. So I thought, okay, this is safe. And then the last one was so chaotic that this was safe. And so I thought that this kind of spiritual work of connecting with the cosmos and like being in, alignment with my chakras was going to also get me those things, but it didn't. So I in myself, I was like, I was looking for something else. And that's when I bumped into the work of emotional work. And I realized, oh my God, like I'm not in my body.
Yeah.
I'm not connected to my feelings. And I have no idea how to handle all of this because actually the reason that all of these relationships are messy is because my emotional body is very stuck and repressed. And so I then went on the journey to discover the emotional body and how to work with the emotional body. And then that actually brought me an amazing partner when I started doing this work. And then as I was with him, I was realizing, wait a second, like there's some sort of distinction here between emotional work between women and emotional work between man and woman. And I started to study and take classes and research, like, what is this whole thing about polarity and conscious relationship? Because now, okay, I've done the emotional work. I'm not in resentment. I'm not in this, but actually now I realize I'm totally in my masculine, and I'm like doing everything, and I'm doing processes, and I'm changing myself, and I'm transforming, and I'm pushing, I'm like kind of really in this evolutionary go energy, but it wasn't making my relationship like click, and I think that's what it is that the masculine feminine polarity is a click, and if it's not clicking, it means the balance is really off.
What are some questions maybe you can put out or like throw out there for people to ask themselves to maybe also have a mini aha moment that help you to recognize that you're not in connection with your emotions?
Yeah. So I discovered this because I was emotional eating, or I was overeating, and I was going to the kitchen for this kind of to try to fill something. So I would say, like, how you can identify if you're suppressing something is if you are going to some sort of habitual, like, kind of addictive pattern over and over and over again, because this is just the way that humans are often, we're conditioned in a way to find a way to not feel it, like, no matter what.
Yeah.
So there are different ways in which people create this pattern, but for me, it was about eating. And so I was eating to try to, like, keep it in even more. So I would eat and, like, I'd feel something. I would have no idea what to do about it. It was usually fear, sometimes anger, and sadness is more, I think fear and sadness are more the ones that correlate with eating.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I don't know what to do with it. So, but I need to fill this. I need to something has to go down or it has to come out, but I didn't know how to bring it out.
Yes, you shared your experience. Would you maybe share a few tools, like a few questions that people can use for their own self-reflection like that?
I actually don't think this is a self-reflection kind of situation. And for me, I never would have been able to figure this out on my own. It was only when somebody confronted, when I was in a space, when I was with a coach, that someone was like, hey, what are you doing? What's really going on? What are you feeling? And only then when I got that mirror, right, was I able to realize it. So I think...
Understand, yeah. Do you think AI will ever be able to play that role? If AI is knowing your actions, it's able to maybe perceive what's happening in your life to be that, like, to serve that function?
Yeah, I'm sure it can, if you're saying, like, I'm walking around my house and eating this kind of food, and I'm, looking at these kinds of things on social media, and you're, like, saying what your numbing strategy is, which I think we can all come clean about how we are numbing and just kind of zoning out and going into zombie mode, then I'm sure AI would have some, like, possibilities around that. But there's something that AI doesn't have, I think, which is really like the intuitive felt sense of another human.
Yeah.
And actually what we really need to be able to process these kinds of feelings that are hiding is to be in the presence of a loving, present human. Yeah.
Conscious relationships. Can you give me a definition what that is?
Yeah, I would say a conscious relationship is a relationship that is serving the evolution of yourself, your partner, and humanity. And that it's about taking everything that's there, the good, the bad, the ugly, the hard, whatever, and bringing it into the awareness between the two of you. So an unconscious relationship is when two people are in a relationship, but they just hide or they pretend that there's no problem. They pretend everything's fine. They don't ever actually let things come to the surface. So it's not about, having a happy, perfect relationship.
Yeah.
It's about being real.
I think a relationship that is peaceful, that is or the final state that is peaceful and harmonious is a desirable state to kind of like optimize your growth for. But
Yeah.
to get there, maybe is that how you see it, or you think in any stage in life there always has to be some emotional like experiences where you're misaligned and you're finding and trying to find balance between each other?
I think it's a hard question to answer. My sense is that, there is a point in which you get to in the relationship where there is a certain level of peace and harmony and connection. And when you're in that moment and if you're both committed to continuing your evolutionary path, you will find that there is always the next thing. There's always something else to look at, to improve, or to grow. And so if both people are on their path and actually like taking the steps to step further into who they really want to be and explore and learn, there's bound to be some kind of, conflicts here and there if you're both changing and growing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I think the shift is about having that happen in a non-violent, healthy way, and not in like you said this and not in this blaming or yelling or screaming. It's really about how are you evolving inside of the relationship.
Yeah. What would you say is the most common way the relationship don't work out, even though both partners are maybe doing the work and trying to become more conscious, but in the end, it still doesn't work out?
I think the main thing is that the masculine feminine polarity is off. So you can both be conscious and doing your work and having support and coaches and whoever to go through your process. But if the polarity is off, if the woman is not in the masculine, the woman is not in the feminine and she's in the masculine, there is no forward movement.
And how do one develop develop a balance between masculine and feminine within themselves? What are some practices would you recommend?
Yeah. So, so balancing the masculine feminine is very important for both people.
Yeah.
And to balance it, it's first you have to come into your non-toxic masculine as a woman. So often there's this conversation, I hear this all over the internet, the toxic masculinity. Actually, that's true, but also women have toxic masculinity, which is the habits of controlling and manipulating and overdoing and micromanaging and telling other people what to do. And like, this is kind of the way that we learned from our mothers. I think a lot of us had mothers that were in this kind of overdoing, helicopter controlling, telling, trying to help, overdoing it.
Yeah.
And so we kind of take that on as, okay, that's what you do as a woman. But this is actually like a very broken, I don't like toxic, but it's more like it's a broken masculine, it's a wound of the masculine. So that needs to be addressed and restored. And then you have to find out what is actually the proper use of masculine energy for a woman. And it's not controlling or telling what to do, but it's about learning how to hold space for all parts of yourself and learning how to never leave yourself. That's what you need, is to have a part of you that is like, it's like your spine that's just holding your back, that will not abandon you. It will not abandon you. And then your feminine is safe to express and be and move.
The feminine, you're saying, comes in when there's space for it. Is there a way for you to, let's say you are in your masculine and you're trying to work on the balance, and is there a way for you to invite more feminine? Yes, you got to work on your masculine too, but is there a way for you to enhance your feminine?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, do you want me to tell you?
Yeah. Yeah.
So in order to step into your feminine, the first thing, as I said, is you have to restore your masculine. You have to learn how to take care of yourself. You have to learn how to have your own back. You have to learn how to hold space for yourself and accept yourself in all the parts. So feminine is chaos. Feminine is wild. Feminine is nonlinear. Feminine is all of the feelings at the same time. And so if you are rejecting any part of your feminine, then you will hold it in. And so the masculine part of you is the part of you that can hold space for the whole thing. So first, it's really about accepting the full spectrum of your being. You're not all love and light, and you're not perfect, you know. You're also pissed, and you're also, you know, like raw and kind of like dirty and like grimy and wow, right? So it's this, and then the feminine to really go there is to just start to make a commitment to yourself that it's actually about like coming into acceptance that you were born as a woman. Because we were born into a society in the West that really values masculine qualities, we were very, very conditioned to become very strong in doing and going.
Yeah.
And it's so deep, you know. It's like, it's not even just, you know, the generation you're in, it's the ones before that were doing the same thing. So it's like, it's a lot of conditioning to come out of.
Do you have your personal theory of why that formed that way? Why do we have so much masculine? Is it because my theory is it's because men have been kind of in control, using power to kind of take over, and women had a lot less rights or no rights, and so they had to adapt, and so masculine way of being was the way to adapt. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, something like this, you know, like we didn't have the rights, and then you get the rights, and then you think, oh, this is what we wanted. And so, I mean, what I see is like women are better at the men's job. You know, like women have taken, you know, I don't know if I want to go here, but it seems like they've taken the business structures that men created and become better at them than men, you know, with marketing and social media and you know, capitalism. And so it's like women stepped in to like realize, oh, we can play the game, and oh, we'll be better at it than you.
Yeah.
And it's been such a huge cost to the soul of the feminine. And the feminine is actually really this receptive kind of source, creationary source of life that is not so fulfilled in the doing.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of women that have a strong masculine side don't even know how to process that. It's like, well, then what would I do, you know, if I'm not doing all the things I do? But this is kind of the source of so much pain, I think, that women experience. And you know, like gut issues and back pain and hair loss, and like there's a big list of things that start to happen when you are kind of like a broken record in your masculine energy.
What are the most common things that you work with when you work with your clients, repeating patterns that you see?
People pleasing, saying yes when they mean no, controlling, manipulating, kind of pretending, like pretending that they like their coworker, pretending that they like going to this event, kind of just faking it, waiting till it's over, like this.
And that leads what type of what's the worst case scenario? What it leads to? What are they, when they come to you, I guess, what is their biggest problem? Like what is the biggest pain that they have?
Yeah, the biggest pain is that they feel like they've lost themselves. And in that, they also feel like they're losing their partner. Or the experience is that in the past, they lost themselves to the point in which they then lost the relationship. Because as soon as you lose yourself, there is no foundation for a real relationship.
Yeah.
I think this is such a common thing, you know. It's like, why did it end? Like, people say, why did it end? Why did it crumble? And it's like, well, where did you go? Like, what happened to you? It's like, well, I was miserable. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I see oftentimes relationships don't work out because when you get into the relationship, your state of like your development level is on a similar level. And then over time, one kind of stays stagnant and not really developing. The other one grows faster, and then there's a big disconnect there.
Yeah.
Is there any else that you see apart from that being a reason? Why else do the relationship crumble as well?
Yeah. I think that's one of the reasons.
Yeah.
And the reason that they're okay, so that crumbles because the person who is kind of moving faster in a sense or growing in a different direction or more committed to it, they are not creating the boundary and the clarity about what they want what kind of relationship they want to be in. So the other person is kind of floundering and doesn't even realize that, like, for example, she's grown away. And then they're like, what happened? And so there are a lot of points in a relationship as a woman that you have to stand up for what level of relationship you want to be in. And if the man is not walking to meet you, then you need to make your decision, you know, or you need to really make it clear, like, this is how. And most women are too afraid to actually step into that boundary, you know, and step into the truth of, like, hey, this is how I want it to be.
Yeah.
And will you join me in this? Like, most people don't do that. It's vulnerable, right? Say, like, hey. And so because that conversation doesn't happen, it will fall apart.
Yeah. I have a sense that conversation often also doesn't happen because they're not aware enough to even start the conversation.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's where the feelings come in. Like, when you are disconnected from your feelings, for example, if you're feeling angry in your relationship, you're angry because something isn't working, you want something to be different.
Yeah.
And if you do not let yourself feel this feeling, you don't know how to feel it, you never trained yourself, then it's there for a year, and you could have used it a year ago to say, hey, this isn't working. Mm-hmm. And then you create a stop, and then the direction changes and moves. And so you miss all these moments to actually stay in the evolutionary path in your side of your relationship because you don't want to be angry or you don't want to be mean or whatever.
Yep.
And yeah, and I know why a lot of people don't do it is because a lot of the anger that comes up is resentment anger, or it's emotional anger, which means it's from the past. So it's almost like a lot of, when I first work with people, with women, they'll say, fuck, I don't know if I can do this because I'm afraid if I open this, it's going to be too big.
Yeah.
So it's almost like women know that it's a lot of times that you never said anything. Like hundreds of times you never said anything. He did the same thing over and over and over and you never said anything.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, okay, say it. And then she's like, no, it's going to come out like an explosion, you know? So that's why that's part of why I'm doing what I'm doing, because it takes time to train yourself, like to actually feel the feeling the first time in a space with a space holder that's safe, so you can go like full steam, so that when you start to train yourself, so when you actually have anger, you feel the anger, you're with your partner, you can say it in a way that's clear and actually it can reach them.
Yeah. What would you say should be the first thing when you feel that you're triggered by your partner? What should you do?
First thing is stop. Like stop, drop, roll. No, it's if you're triggered by your partner, the first thing to understand is that it is not about him in this moment. If you're triggered by your partner, it has its roots in something behind you.
Yeah.
So if you react in the moment, so he says like, why didn't you fix the locks, the locks on the door? Like you said you were going to do it. Yeah. And you have this reaction like, oh my God, I tried to finish today. I couldn't. So you already feel yourself getting worked up about it. You can rest yourself realizing, okay, this is not about him, and this is not about right now. And if I load my bow and arrow and I fire at him right now, it will not be about this moment, and so it won't work. He won't be able to hear it. It won't get through. It won't create anything but a big mess.
Yeah.
So the best thing to do is to stop and get out a piece of paper and write down the emotional trigger that you have. And like, okay, da-da-da-da-da. And to take this to your woman community. So my approach is a bit radical, but I teach women to take your emotional triggers out of your relationship. Like, pull it up. Nope. Turn to the other direction and bring it to woman. And
how does that work? Like, can you walk me through exactly how would that happen?
Yeah. So in the moment, you would realize you're triggered and you would say, hey, I'm really triggered right now. I don't want to get into this. I'm not going to respond to you right now. I'll get back to you about this.
Yeah.
That's it. Then you take as much time as you need to find a space holder, another woman, a friend, a sister to process it. I fully recommend working with a space holder that knows how to do emotional healing work. Like, without it, you're kind of stuck. So, but as long as you find a way to process it outside of that moment, then you can come back to your relationship and you can then have a conversation about the situation. What happens when, so what I just gave you was an example of actually he's triggered. So he's triggered about the door, but then I get triggered about his trigger, like you are getting nowhere.
Right.
So when you start to become aware of what a trigger is and when you see someone else triggered, before you even let yourself get triggered, you can become a space holder for him in that moment. And you can totally stop it in its tracks, right?
Yeah.
So oftentimes when I would say women are getting triggered by their partners or by men is because the man is triggered in the first place. And so you are treating it as if he's done something to you and you're now, poor me and he's an asshole. But it's like, wait a second, you went too far already. Like, slow down, because actually he's the one having a problem right now. It's not about me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. And if you feel like, or let's say if the fight on the same reason and same triggers happen over and over again, what is the best way to get out of that? Is that kind of the same idea? Just try to pull yourself out of it and process it outside. And yeah.
So I would say if it's the same, it's almost like you're both triggered about the same thing, to bring in a third person. So bring in a third person to triangulate the situation. It's like you're both mirroring each other and you have blind spots and you can't see. It's like you get nowhere. So I would say bring in a third person. And if you can't, or you're in a situation, where there's not access to a third person, the best thing I can say is to solve one problem at a time. So first, address your trigger, and the other person he, in the example, has to find a way to be centered and grounded and to not make it about him and to take the time to solve your problem. Then take an hour break and then you can work on his problem that he's having. But what happens naturally is if both people are triggered and they're both getting support to actually heal the trigger, because triggers are emotional wounds from the past. And so what the trigger itself needs is it needs to be expressed. It needs to be seen. It needs to be completed in a sense. So once it gets completed, it doesn't matter how. You don't need him to complete it, even if it's about him. You just need someone to help you complete it. Then the charge isn't there anymore.
Yeah. What's helpful? So in our relationship, my wife and I, we very often feel blessed with our relationship, just seeing other types of relationships, have people engage and things like that. And we Yeah, we don't get into the staying in the trigger state for too long. We notice that one of us are being triggered or both of us are being triggered, and we right away cut it out and then go reflect ourselves, either journal or just think about it or just take time. And that's been a very helpful practice for us to find peace and balance between each other. Yeah.
Yeah.
Journaling in general has been one of the best practices for myself to process any type of tension or any type of misalignment. Just try to describe it instead of like analyzing it. Just put on paper as much as you can describe what is happening in your process, and it's almost like you externalize it, or like you taking it out of yourself and putting it on paper. Now you can look at it from outside instead of just be completely covered by it or like controlled by it, the whole emotional charge of it.
Yeah. That sounds like a approach that works for some people. Yeah. And what I found is actually I go the opposite direction. So like instead of kind of going more in about it, I would go into my room and like start smacking a pillow. So I'd actually let the trigger like get really big and actually try to get the energy that feels blocked around it to like move. And I think this is also more of a feminine way of processing things that I really celebrate in women, that they make space for this, to actually just let yourself like be so fucking pissed or like so scared or whatever it is that's really going on, that you actually give yourself that kind of release, because then the nervous system can kind of come back into regulation. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. I don't think I've ever got myself to the point of that like uncontrollable anger or uncontrollable emotions where I'm screaming, or only during a few like contained facilitated experiences where I was invited to really engage my voice and scream and those types of things. But in life in general, somehow I'm able to process it, and I do really believe that there is a resolution that is happening, because it's not coming back after I worked on it.
Amazing.
through awareness and through the mind, and like just bringing awareness into the situation, journaling or thinking about it, voice journaling. Oftentimes I go on the walk and just record my thoughts and my whatever comes through me, and then I would process that, and that's been very helpful.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up, because there's something I also want to share, that men and women process differently, and oftentimes relationships, kind of coming back to the polarity topic, is that women are expecting men to process like women do, and men actually have a different way of processing, and has a flavor of being more solitary or more, it can be different. And so it's like to really support and recognize how people are doing it, and okay, it's working for him, okay, great, it's working for him. And that's also part of the stopping to control, and getting out of your masculine and stop trying to get him to do it the way that you think he should do it, but like let him have his problem, let him do it how he wants to do it. And and really make a choice to like relish in your own life energy instead of worrying about him all the time.
The repeating patterns through generations, usually through your parents, talk about like why they still keep repeating, and what are the best practices to stop those patterns within your life. Amazing.
They're repeating because nobody is doing anything different. Like because you saw what your mom was doing, and then you're doing it because it's just what you think or how you saw it, and that's it. So the way to stop it is to first become aware of what it is and to transform the pattern, and then to make new decisions and create new choices around what is it that you want, what is the active or somehow like affirmative thing that you are doing. So okay, if you're not people pleasing, if you just say, okay, I'm going to stop doing it, but then what are you doing? Okay.
Right.
So it's like about coming up with having the full picture of like, what is the thing that you're stepping into and how do you start training yourself? Because what I see in these patterns is that the first step is to heal the emotional wound that keeps you in the pattern. So usually there's just a fear. So people pleasing is a fear. People are doing it. You say yes, you mean no, because you're afraid that if you say no, that the person's going to reject you. And if they reject you, then you're alone. And if you're alone, then you're alone and you're scared and then no one's there and then you're going to die alone. It's like in these moments when women say yes when they mean no, it's the fear is traced all the way back to something like that.
Yep.
That's a real fear. So of course you're not going to say no, because you're dealing with that fear. So tracing it back there, cleaning that up, having clarity about that, and then learning how to be a woman that has fear, learning how to breathe and be with your fear and learn how to be okay in the energy of fear is something that you need to be able to say no, because it is scary. You could be rejected. They could leave you. However, you can handle it. And that's what you have to start practicing. So I always, after I do that process with a woman, when I'm in a container with her, I always say, okay, now pick something that's very non-threatening to practice saying no.
Yeah.
So it could be at the restaurant and they say, do you want more water? And you don't. And you usually say, yeah, just because, yeah,
Right,
you
so
know, they're standing there, they're asking. So practice something very simple, small, say no. Then I'll say, okay, with your partner, say no 5 times in one day, just because, and tell him you're going to do it. So he'll say, hey, do you want a coffee? No. So just you start practicing and training the little moments, and then you kind of, what happens is you start to feel like, oh, okay. Like, okay, there's a bit of energy now. It's you say no, and then you have space, and you have energy, and your joy comes back. And then the bigger things in life will come, and then you'll be like, no. So it just, you there's like a training path to changing this. And that's how I see it really, really shifting. And then I think even the next level of it is actually doing this in the presence of your family. So in a space where they know you, you are a certain way. And when you're there, you usually fall into the way that they see you or that they project onto you. And so when you can, in a moment like that, hold the integrity of who you are now, you're kind of like breaking. It feels like you're breaking it, and the dominoes are then all falling, because they're now actually the imprint is being shown to the rest of the family, and that actually allows for other people to as well start moving and changing, to say, wow, okay, she said no, okay, so what does this mean about me? And I find that to be really a big leap. And in my personal experience, I did about five years of this work really on my own and not ever bringing it to my family. And because I was kind of under the impression like, okay, everything that's a trigger is mine, and I can handle it on my own, and I don't need that person to be there to make it okay. And then I actually got to this point where I started to feel like, I think I actually need this specific person. Like, I need their help, kind of. And so there were a couple of different people in my family that I decided to invite into my world and ask to get a space holder with me. Like, hey, I want to have a conversation with you with a space holder. So I actually brought in, some support to actually address specifically these kind of dynamics where the patterns are so present, right?
Yeah.
And I think that was a big shift as well for my personal lineage. And I empower people to do this, like to actually confront the person in real life, if it's safe, if they're available, if it's possible, if you can, because there's nothing like actually feeling this healing happening with the person that, it was about. And it's not always possible for people, but I think it's something to maybe consider. Yeah.
Talking about personal evolution, from my understanding, if you don't process all of these triggers, all of this baggage, trauma, you can't move, like you can't progress in your evolution. Is that true? And what is the most effective way then, the second question, to progress in and does it even mean to progress? What is that?
Yeah. Oh.
I threw multiple questions at you. Maybe
it's good.
Yeah.
I have something. I see evolution as like a spiral. It's not like a linear path. It's not a linear line.
Yeah.
And so I think if you don't clean up the mess, heal the triggers, and really get that kind of completion that's needed, you are moving forward. You will be moving forward from kind of an inauthentic place. So it does seem required for the evolution of your being to be able to to complete these things so you can begin again and start something new. It somehow has this flavor of birth, life, death. Om Namah Shivaya. Like there's an ending that needs to happen, a closing. And what I see in our modern culture is that it's so much focused on the beginning, the creation, the birth, the going, the best part, the high at the dance party, the peak moment.
Yeah.
But then the parts about going inward and then letting go and dropping it and surrendering and dying and really going through the ending of the cycle in any area of your life is necessary for the evolutionary to then come into the next step. And that's what this healing your triggers is that level of evolution. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so human evolution, like an evolution of species, does that mean that, let's say, there's a total amount of triggers and traumas that the whole collective is holding in space, and for us to evolve into whatever different types of more evolved species, we have to process most of it, because I'm sure over time we get new triggers, new things that emerge. So on the large scale, what does that evolution look like? Is it shedding off as much weight as possible, or is it learning how to deal with just triggers in general and knowing how to continuously shave off more and more? Like, what is that?
Yeah, something kind of different comes to me to say first.
Yeah.
Which is that when I'm speaking about evolution, I'm speaking about this point in which your aliveness and truth is pure. So it's not about getting rid of the things to be more something, but something about being more in aliveness, in the truth of right now. And that is the realist version of you is the evolution or something like this. This is evolution, And I'm personally I'm not looking to get somewhere else. I think that's kind of where I feel that the scientific evolutionary thing is to get somewhere else. But the way I see it is evolution is the state in which you will stay as a thriving, alive human, because if you're not doing that, then you start to devolve and you actually start to get sick and stuck. And so it's almost it's kind of the way it is. So either you get on board so that you can be here, really be here, or you're not on board and you just start suffering and get sick. And, we see this all over the world. You become a zombie.
Yeah.
So it's face it and become an evolutionary person, which is going to mean all of it. It's birth, life, death. You cannot get rid of the dark, the death, the excruciating, the hard, the ending of things. So
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I noticed the correlation between more evolution means more awareness of the present moment. The more things
Yeah.
we are aware, both internally and externally, the more maybe evolved we are. Maybe
Yeah, I
probably
would
safe to say.
say, and when I think about, the people that have claimed enlightenment, it wasn't like what they were experiencing was just like this full awareness of
Right,
everything
right,
all at
right.
once.
Exactly.
Um, yeah,
Mm,
yeah,
yeah, and then talking about your purpose, like we all have our purpose, and sometimes going back to the relationships, you lose yourself in the relationship and you kind of get off track of pursuing your purpose. Um, Talk about that more. Like, what have you discovered there? What are the patterns?
yeah.
Yeah.
What I've discovered is that losing yourself in a relationship is a survival strategy. So it's a way that you try to actually keep the relationship. So
Mm-hmm.
it's an unconscious thing where you think, oh, if I give myself away as if like I'm always focusing on what he wants and trying to do what he likes and kind of fit into his reality, then he will stay with me and then we'll be together and then I'm safe. Mm-hmm. So it's actually a way to like kind of create safety.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened? Yeah, and so you create this false safety, and then you've lost your own clarity, your own desires, your own life, like your own thing. And so I think like it's so intoxicating to be in union with a man that it becomes easy. And then on top of it, because it's like so juicy, you just like, okay, just anything for this, right? You give everything else away for this kind of union.
Yeah.
And then it's like reaching a mountaintop and being like, oh shit. And I think the way to really reclaim yourself in these moments is to start to find out what are your boundaries, find out what you personally want, what is inspiring to you and like what really lights you up, and actually allowing yourself to be in your feminine, which means in the dynamic with a man, which means like being unhinged, like in your expression and like presence, and letting him actually step into the masculine role. And that actually will make you feel like you're yourself again, because you're not actually trying to also be masculine in the relationship.
And that with the notion of trying to make it work and continue the relationship while you're pursuing your purpose, is there a point on which you recognize, okay, this relationship is not going anywhere. It's not helping me progress and contribute to my purpose. What is that like tipping point? At what point do you say we're not meant to be together?
Yeah. I think so. If you are with someone who's not also committed to their growth for themselves, then there is no future. So I would say if you realize after a year or two that this person is really not committed to evolution for themselves, then you won't get anywhere. If you try to get him to do it for you for the relationship, it's just not going to work.
Yeah.
So I'd say like just call it at that point. And if you when you become clear about what it is that you want, like what level of relating you want inside the relationship, and you say this to this person and you say, okay, this is what I need in order to stay with you, and this is how I want to be related to, and this is what I want to do. And if the person does not, with their actions, step up to meet that, then that's your sign. Like, then that's when, like, leave it,
For sure.
And women get really like attached because that's more of our nature to cling, to attach to men. And it's like the biggest demise to our own like like we don't need them. Like, sorry, we don't need men. We want to be in a union with them. We want this, but it's like you have to shift yourself into like, I don't need him to make me feel happy, to live my purpose, to be complete. It's like really finding that from yourself and developing a relationship actually with a masculine God, I found was also really impactful, and a feminine God like Mother Earth, you know, Father Sky, to have this relationship with spirit as well, to really feel this like this neediness to take care of that outside of him. And when you can really get your needs met, because needs is like a child's state, a child ego state thing. You get your needs met, then you can actually be in a relationship with him that's not about needing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Which is where the losing yourself comes in, because you think you need it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. With all of the work that you do and help people with, what would you say is on the other side? What type of state would you describe is on the other side of doing the work?
Yeah, the other side is relaxed nervous system. Is like, it's something about having time for what you really enjoy in your life. So when you step out of the masculine role and you let your man come into the masculine role. So one of the things is, if you're thinking, oh no, the relationship needs to end, I'm giving up, first try completely 100% stepping out of the masculine energy and see if he steps up, because a lot of women leave relationships because the man is not stepping into the masculine more. And it's like, well, why isn't he doing it? Because you're hogging all the space.
Right.
So when you totally step out of it, then you give him space to actually try, right? To really step in. So when that happens, you really start to feel like this archetypal experience of having a man by your side, and to be supported and like on a path together that's not about fixing or needing, but about evolution, about creation. It's like suddenly the relationship space is this place where you look at him and you're like, whoa, what could we create together? Not, whoa, I need you to protect me, like you're my dad. Or not, oh, can you make this better for me? You know? So when you're not looking at him like that, suddenly you'll see this king. Like you'll see this person that you had no idea was in there, and you're like, holy fuck, we could do anything we wanted. We could create anything. And so the relationship becomes a place to birth new things and to grow.
Mm-hmm. How would you describe a desirable human future?
I see, desirable human future.
Mm-hmm.
Woman living in village together, and men being there in their role, but like really shifting the whole relationship grid to have it be more woman centered. Because what I see is like women are here to really weave the life energies together.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes what I see is the problem now is that women are expecting things from men that really come from women. And so creating like an actual network in person of women to like, you know, physically like take care of each other emotionally, mentally, in all the ways, spiritually, like to have women be nourishing each other like that, so that the man and the woman can be actually in that relationship that where there's energy. So yeah, it's like somehow I see like just the literal infrastructure being in a way that's communal.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like your vision of future cities. Basically, most people live in this tribal lifestyle, away from megapolitan, like big, large cities like New York or things like that, Miami.
Yeah, I mean, like the nuclear family unit in a box next to someone else's box, and then next to someone else's box that doesn't talk to any of the boxes next to each other, is a big disaster. And so many of the issues that we have would be solved with community and village. It's like such a foundation. And so I don't know how it can be restructured in this way, but, I don't even know if it has to do so much with the structure, but more of the mindset of people, and like, because you can, you could knock on everyone's door in the neighborhood, you could create something, you could, actually be an agent of this change. But I also know the structures make it so tiring if you have to get in your car every 10 minutes to see this friend, and you have to drive 10 minutes to pick up your kids, and then the kids are in the school. It's like, right. It's not really serving. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Yeah. So maybe in the closing, share any last thoughts. How can people find you? How can people support you? Any resources you want people to point to? Things like that.
Thank you. You can find me on Instagram, and on my website. And I'm offering a one-on-one coaching program that's for women, and it's really a deep dive to kind of get to the root of the triggers and help you to step into the version of you that you're here to be. You can find me there. You can send me a message, and
Beautiful.
Yeah, and I live in Portugal, and my partner and I have a farm, and we have some pigs, and we're kind of like on this discovery of how can we turn it into a community, or how can we move it to be closer to community. But we're really on this mission of like how to live in alignment with nature, how to live with other families, and like have children together. And I'm hoping to create some sort of future place where this is what I'm talking about is being lived by example.
Yeah, I see that for you.
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. All right. Thank you. And for the listeners, if you're still around, thank you for sticking around all the way to the end. Hope you enjoy the conversation, and I'll see you on the next one.